Right, well, well past 10:30 now, so I think we'll make a start. Recording started, so welcome everybody to the Sutherland County Committee. I understand now that these meetings will be recorded and will be available on YouTube. So this is a change of process for us, so it's interesting to know. And so we just need to be aware. So by being in attendance, you agree to being recorded. So everyone needs to be aware of that. Okay, thank you, folks. First of all, do we have any apologies for absence? Well, I know we have apologies from Hugh Morrison, and I understand that Linda Monroe is going to be late. And any other apologies, Anne?
I haven't received any.
I think Fiona will be late as well. So I think that Linda and Fiona are both at the same meeting. So at the moment we're still waiting for Kirstine, but she may join us as we go forward. Okay, agenda item number 2, folks. We have a declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest from any of the attendees? No? Okay, thank you. That's none for there, so that's good. Okay, now item number 3, the first of the substantive parts of the agenda is the police area performance summary, and we have Inspector Joe Thompson with us, who is going to talk us through the report. So, Joe, all over to yourself.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Everyone will have received a copy of the police area performance report, I'm assuming, which provides an update on our progress against our objectives as outlined in our policing plan. What I plan to do is just go through each section in order, if everyone's okay with that. So our first priority in the report is road safety and road crime. So the first thing to highlight there is that we noticed that in this period we've had no persons killed on the roads in Sutherland. And the next thing of interest there is that there's been a reduction in drink and drug driving during the period. Just of interest, we've also had an increase of numbers of officers trained to use the drugs wipes that are getting used now. The next thing of interest is an increase in the number of persons detected speeding. This is generally as a result of increased proactivity, with a decrease of visitor-related incidents on the roads in this period. It's allowed our road policing units to be more proactive in the area. There's no major hotspots or speeding in Sutherland, but an area that does get highlighted to us by the local community is the stretch of road between Argyle and Bonar Bridge. There is ongoing efforts to have the speed limit reduced there. As the Chief Inspector, he's looking at it, and we have got a dedicated officer that's taken this on. But to be honest with you, in reality, we're not seeing high numbers of speeding offences in that area whenever we have had activities and speed detection days in that area. So on the next page, though, I'll bring your attention to the driver engagement north section. This is a multi-agency initiative which demonstrates drivers' reactions and abilities. Though it's mainly aimed at older drivers, it can be used to offer advice to family members or friends who were concerned about whether there's someone we know is fit to drive or not. So if you notice, there's a link underneath it. So if you want to share that with anybody that's got any concerns about anyone's driving or their ability to drive, you can say just to share it with them. As I say, there are ongoing operations at the moment with preventions and interventions and road policing out on the North Coast 500 route, and that's including quite a number of police cars and motorbikes. And as some of you know, we'll also have our North Highland Visitor Management Group, which includes a lot of the key stakeholders in our area. So it's a weekly meeting with updates being provided in advance of the meeting, so any issues that have arisen during the week can be considered in advance, and so that we've got the appropriate persons identified to deal with them as the matters come up. But as these meetings have been held recently have shown that this time there's no real visitor management concerns being made aware of at the moment. Obviously, we're thinking maybe this weekend the numbers are going to be going up a bit more again, and that might change. So we go on to the next section. It's serious and organised crime. So it's not a known big issue in this area, but just the bit there's been 3 Misuse of Drugs Acts search warrants executed in this area for this period, and I can confirm that all 3 of those warrants were positive. So if we move on to the next section, which is acquisitive crime. So firstly, we see there's been a reduction in house break-ins in Sutherland during this period. The next bit is that there's 4 theft of motor vehicles. This is more related to unlawful removal of vehicles rather than, say, a stranger theft of a vehicle. And then the theft from motor vehicles, this is generally opportunistic thefts where maybe someone's left their car unsecured and someone's just got in and taken something from it. But say we've only had 1 recorded in the period. We then move on to violence, disorder and antisocial behaviour. Licensed premises checks are down on last year, understandably, mainly due to licensed premises being closed during the COVID lockdown periods. But as they've been opening up, we have a structured plan and in place for visits to be carried out every week, and then if necessary, joint visits can be organised. With next down, we can see that abusive behaviour, assaults and vandalism, they're all down below the 5-year average. What I will draw your attention to, though, is that assaults on emergency workers are down in the area. Unfortunately, this isn't consistent with the rest of the country, which has seen an increase in the assaults on the police. We do now have a Chief Constable's Pledge, which we use when dealing with assaults on the police to ensure the welfare of all our staff that have been assaulted. In regards to the stop and searches conducted, drugs misuse is an issue in the communities in Sutherland, as it is in every community. But just to reassure you, there is significant work ongoing targeting specific individuals, and there are addresses that are being closely monitored. But again, as has probably been said before, we need the whole community to come forward and play their part. And it's their information that we do rely on, and just to build bigger pictures. It might just be the smallest bit of information, but it might just be that bit that builds a bigger picture on what is going on. See, the next section is protecting vulnerable people. So just before I go into it, it's worthwhile noting that 80% of all Police Scotland incidents that we attended are non-crime. So we deal with missing persons, concerns for persons, and assisting those in mental health crisis. So police work in partnership with a wide variety of partners and remain at the forefront at protecting those vulnerable persons in our community. We can see there that just in the North Highland, we dealt with 137 reports of missing persons in this period, and this has a significant knock-on effect with everything else we need to deal with. It affects our resources and our ability to carry out any other inquiries. Our next section is the terrorism public order. To be honest, there's not really much scope to deal with that in the Sutherland area. So that's the end of our report. So does anybody want to ask any questions on what's contained within the report?
Thank you, Joe. That's very good. Thank you very much. And I'd like to extend our thanks to you and your officers for all the work you do in and around Sutherland. It's greatly appreciated. So thank you very much for that. I've got a couple of questions for you. And I've seen hands up as well. So with regards to traffic, I mean, I know that we are looking at a huge increase in traffic coming to the north. You just need to drive south to see the convoys of camper vans heading north. In general, from my own observations, everybody seems to be behaving really well, and it's quite nice to welcome visitors back to the area. But in terms of the a policing perspective, what plans do you have for making sure that everything's running smoothly, and when we get also a lot of bikers coming up and going, and it would be suggested that they travel at significant speeds as they're travelling around the country roads of Sutherland. What plans do you have in place for that? I've also got another question about housebreaking detection rates. I noticed that the numbers are very small, but I also noticed that the detection rate seems very low as well, at 33%. So I'd like to just comments on that, please. And the final question I have for you is to do with the antisocial behaviour officer, social behaviour orders. Sorry again, antisocial behaviour orders. I notice there are none in force at the moment. I'd just like to, if you give us an update on who actually has responsibility for antisocial behaviour orders, and what action could be taking place for some known situations that we have in Sutherland. That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, the first one in regards to the kind of visitors to the area and kind of concentrating kind of on the North Coast 500, which kind of covers a lot of that, is our road policing units. They have daily patrols in that area. They've also got special kind of overnight stays where they put units out for like extended periods of time. We have our own local kind of arrangements where quite often we've got the incident van and they put that round the area. We've got quite often special constables being utilised to patrol the area and assist. And our prevention and interventions have previously, not so much last year when the numbers were down, but they did a lot of interacting with the visitors just to make them aware of the rules of these kind of slower roads and the kind of etiquette involved in these roads. And the housebreaking, we've got quite an anomaly in our area with the housebreaking. Is what we found that a lot of the properties that are broken into were mainly holiday homes. And the difficulty with that is that sometimes it takes a while for that to come to our attention that that's being broken into, and quite often with that, any kind of forensic opportunities have been lost and because they're quite often remote as well, there's quite often limited kind of further inquiry available that can be done with these house break-ins. And what was the antisocial behaviour? We've got an officer who's like dedicated. Apart from our preventions and interventions, we have a local officer that works along with the Highland Council. And what he does is we tend to, if someone's coming to our attention, we'll monitor how many kind of calls or any complaints of antisocial behaviour problems we're having with an address, and then we'll work along with the housing, be it the Highland Council or the local housing agencies, and between us we'll draw up acceptable behaviour contracts, and then obviously it moves on to antisocial behaviour orders.
Thanks for that, Joe. The question I would say about that though is, what's the situation when the antisocial behaviour is coming from properties that are not tenanted but actually owned by the individuals?
Yeah, that's quite difficult. I'm actually having to speak to our local antisocial behaviour officer at the moment to see how we can tackle that, because we've got one in Easter Ross area at the moment that I do need to have to look into that, because that, as I say, is more difficult. We don't quite have the same leverage with them. I'll need to look into that myself.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks very much, Joe. I'll see Councillor McGilvery's hand up.
Just three things just to clarify my thinking and remind me, please, if possible, Joe. Highland Council just banned overnight parking in cemetery car parks. For example, the Proncenian Cemetery at Dornoch is a prime one. Is that a civil matter for the council rangers or a police matter?
I would say it's probably more to do with the council than with ourselves. They've probably got more powers to enforce it than we would. Okay,
right. Second one, my daughter-in-law had the bairns into Dornoch on Saturday, and she showed me the picture of a camper van parked slap bang in the middle of Dornoch Square beside the bus lane, and the occupants with a table and chairs outside having a cup of coffee. Is that a police matter, or is it one for the rangers?
Probably timishly, it would probably phone the police to go and have a word with them.
Right. Okay,
I say we would deal with that because it is clearly causing that issue there and then. So I would recommend just picking up the phone so we could go and give them words of advice.
Yep. It's a silly season has started, so we'll see more of these things. And finally, Dora Community Council brought up a point about unlicensed vehicles parked around the place in public spaces. Again, is that for the council to remove, or are the police interested in that kind of thing?
The council have got the powers to remove it, and we kind of work together. We every now and then we go out with the council and just to show kind of in case kind of a joint kind of face, and then arrange to have these removed. But it is the council that can remove them. So.
Okay, Doc, I'll go there first. Right, lovely, thank you.
Thanks for that, Joe. Jeremy, put your hand up again.
Just did a double click on the put down.
Okay. Okay, listen, thank you, Joe. That was very good. I don't see any other hands up here, so I think there are no more questions for you. So thank you once again for coming along today. I really appreciate it. And as I say, we appreciate the work that you and your officers do to protect Sutherland and keep it safe. You're welcome to stay, but I suspect you've probably got other things you need to be doing. So thank you for your attendance.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, members, we go on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 4, and that is the Dornoch 3 to 18 campus overview. And we have Norman Ross and Alison Donald with us today, who are going to give us a breakdown of the report that we have before us. So welcome both of you, and I'll pass it over to yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Yes, you'll have got the report for the Dornoch 3 to 18, very much nursery to S6, Norman leading the lot, if you like. So Norman has come along with me today to give you some of the stories behind the figures that are there. There were a couple I particularly noted: the exclusion rate and the exclusion rate. What was it? The attendance as well. Sorry, I put it down now. What was that, Norman? We talked about it last week.
Was it positive destinations?
Thank you. The positive destinations. The positive destinations are looking like 100% at the moment, and there are no exclusions. So these would be two very strong figures in there. But I will just let Norman tell you what's happening in Dornoch.
Okay, thank you, Alison, and thank you for the invite today. I'm privileged to be able to speak to you. We're really grateful for that. What I'm going to try and do is just give you a flavour or an overview of the campus at the moment, and certainly talk about these two figures that Alison was talking about just now. And if I'm telling you stuff you know already, my apologies in advance. I'm giving it to you as it's in my head just now. Well, the campus was born, as you know, in 2017, and we continue to benefit from that 100%. It's a fantastic arrangement. We've got a collective roll of 390 just now, and at the moment we've got a mix of time served, newly qualified and probationer staff, and we're hosting student teachers as much as possible, right the way through the primary and the secondary sector, which is great. The forecasting tool on the council suggests that we may be spiking in about 2025. That's the academy, and the primary schools look to be spiking then too. So that's really exciting, and we're looking forward to that. Our young people, we've got the same social diversity as schools are experiencing across Highland, with care experienced pupils and pupils that have adverse childhood experiences, the broad spectrum there. We're really proud of every one of our pupils in here, and it's a privilege. All our staff think it's a privilege to serve them from that age 3 right through to young adulthood. And on a personal note, our tracking and monitoring system has been evolving since 2017, and that's allowing us to capture attainment and progress. We're not done yet. We're absolutely not done. We're keeping going. We're also proud of our additional supports provision, and that links into exclusions and positive attainments, which I'll touch on later. In terms of our return to schools in August, that was unlike anything that's ever happened before. And I have to say the authority support and direction was ever present, and it continues to be ever present through some real challenges in our local context. And thankfully, our own risk assessment processes and our operational changes in each school, we were able to get all our children in. Now, I have to say, pay my respects to the staff and the pupils. They've risen to that challenge completely of working in these socially distant bubbles, zoned areas, and under significant hygiene protocols, and we keep doing that. We were the first secondary school in Sutherland to experience a partial lockdown, and I assure you it was a prize that none of us ever wanted. But our risk mitigations on that occasion and on 2 subsequent occasions were sufficiently robust to protect the school from, if you like, fuller lockdown or more pupils being off. So I'm really grateful for people's work on that. And again, the authority support was on point on that occasion. And I believe parental concerns have, on these occasions, been allayed significantly by the fact that we try to be transparent and we try to communicate to them. And we do have low levels of absence that are specifically focused on anxiety around COVID-19. Now, a remote and lockdown learning, this is from the nurseries all the way through up until S6. We've been through it twice. If we can avoid going through it again, no one will complain, because we know more than ever nothing beats being in school. But we have learned so much from that experience in terms of what's actually possible with information technology and what can actually be achieved remotely. And I would argue that we're coming through that stronger than before. The most significant impact on our young people is the social aspect of learning. And I'm not talking about the playground or the common room, but the actual process of learning together. So that's why right now we're all in school. We want to keep it that way so much. Senior phase, the main concern we have just now is the alternative curriculum model for our senior phase pupils. We're following national and authority support and guidelines. We're focusing on quality assurance. We've given our pupils the requisite time to consolidate learning. We're trying as much as possible to give them more. We're giving them opportunity to provide evidence for the grades that we're working towards. And our staff are certainly working through the moderation process. And I'm delighted to say that it's happening with other schools. And I can pay service to the 2 marks on either side of me, how much communication and support is going on. That's really great. As a side note, we've been doing cross-sector and cross-school moderation ever since the campus was formed. So this is good for us. We're on familiar principles in terms of how it's done. Challenges we have, and I'll finish with that, and then the strengths. Closing the gaps, our focus is on health and well-being, and since March 2020, that's certainly been the way that we go forward. We're keen to get our learning pathways right. We're keen on our transitions. Being a campus has helped with that whole process of transitions, and our school improvement plans are very much focused on health and well-being at the moment. In terms of attainment in secondary, I think it's worth noting that we have an eye on much more than the 5 at 5. I know that's sort of touted as the gold standard, 5 hires at S5, and we try and go beyond that and make sure that every child has an appropriate destination, an appropriate route. I notice, and we treat the league tables very carefully, and we treat insight data as we should, which is as it's on point. We always factor that into our planning and use that to inform our improvement measures going forward. Now, I look forward to the results this year very much to see how these align with the inferred results from last year, to be able to measure progress from our pupils. Attainment in the primary sector, we're still harvesting the CFE data this year from nursery to P7 at key transition stages. We'll use that to monitor progress and feed into our end of year progression. As Alison mentioned, we've got 0 exclusions across the 2 sectors. I would say we're committed to avoiding exclusions, and I view it as a worst case scenario, where there's no other option. We come from a tradition or a habit where it's about intervention, deflection, de-escalation, and then reintegration, and we're committed to going that way. We know our pupils, and there's challenges in terms of how the learning community sees behaviour management. We're here to support and help as much as possible. Our attendance is not significant. Our attendance is not statistically, there's no statistical difference in our attendance from other Highland schools at the moment, as far as I can judge. And I'll finish on the last thing, which is positive destinations. Looking at the insight data this year, I see that pupils attaining a core level of literacy and numeracy at what we call SCQF level 5 is above par in comparison to our virtual comparator schools, and that's something that we want to keep at. But bear in mind, that's just one very tiny snapshot of the way things are going. The last thing is leavers and positive destinations. I did have a slide. Is it possible to share a slide with you, Mr. Gale?
I'm not sure if you're one of
Right.
the presenters on it.
That's all right. I'll talk you through it then. I'll talk you through it. I've got, Alison has said.
Sorry, Alison's one of the presenters. Does she got access to it?
Alison, can you let me present? Is that possible?
I don't think so. Phil
Right,
could
fine.
maybe let you present, I'm thinking.
It's fine. I'll talk through it. It's absolutely
Okay.
fine. I'll talk through it.
Okay.
Right. Okay. What I've got in front of me is basically a list of all the destinations of our leavers last year. And at one stage, that destination, I think, was 96.78 or something. That's, as Alison says, gone to 100%. It's fantastic when you are stopped in ASDAs and told that one of your pupils has made it into their dream job and is now undergoing training. That's the type of thing that we want to see. And just running through some of the destinations, we've got pupils going to sound production, masters in international relationships, pharmacy, health and fitness, social sciences, occupational therapy. I worked out that out of the 19 destinations that we had, there was 89, basically 90% of these routes that people had chosen were routes that would take them back to Sutherland in one way, shape or another, looking to the future. For us, that's perfect. That's what we want, is young people to go away, get what they want, but then be able to bring it back and provide for where we are. That's a very whistle-stop tour. Again, I'm delighted to take questions. If there's anything I can answer on the hoof, absolutely. If there's anything I can't, I will take it away and absolutely get back to you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Norman. That's good, and thank you for the report. It's very positive. I think I speak for probably all parents and possibly grandparents across the Highlands to say that never before has the teaching profession been so valued, because people have been trying to homeschool, and I think it's been a real struggle. And I think it's really highlighted the excellent job that teachers do across the profession. So thank you for that as well. I've just got a couple of small questions, and I noticed that Kevin was hand up as well. First thing is on page 13 of the report, it's looking at the buildings, and in Dornoch Academy it's got the suitability down as C and condition as B. So can you explain, as C I presume means it's not quite so good, so we just understand what is lacking in terms of suitability for Dornoch Academy. And then I've got one more question about the positive destinations, which, as you say, is fantastic at 100%. But I'm just wanting to understand the one of the categories where it says unemployed and seeking is 3.23, and is that classed as still classed as a positive destination? So that's my two questions for you. Thank you.
Okay, Alison, please step in and correct if need be. Right, the B's and the C's. This is a conversation that I've had many times over the past. Now, the actual definers or the measures of that look at things, as far as I know, as the building's energy efficiency, the building's capacity to, feed into the whole renewable or sustainability picture as well. Now, Dornoch Academy was built in 1966. Is that correct, Jim?
63.
63. There you go. I was 3 years out.
I was there.
Oh well, there you go. Thank you. So that has always impinged on it being up in the higher, whether it's A or B, or whether it's further in the alphabet. That's always impinged on that. In terms of its suitability to provide education for the pupils that are in it, I would contend robustly that it is suitable. We invest all the time, if you like, in information technology, and prior to John Garvey's leaving post, this is going a few years ago now, there was substantive work done in terms of asbestos work in the building, and also in providing extra laboratory space for the STEM subjects. And moving a bit forward down there, we work closely with the fire service to make sure that we're up to scratch, up to standard. So although these ratings on paper don't sound as positive as perhaps we may think they should, the building, in my personal opinion, is wholly fit for purpose. The building is running, it's not running at full capacity. You can see that in the forecast rolls for the region, but we've got the space, we've got the equipment and resources to provide education in this corner of Sutherland as best as we can. We'll always take more, no doubt about that. We'll always take more, but no, I'm happy with what's in the report there. On to your next question, unemployed and seeking. It's interesting you should ask that, because in February, when the initial positive destinations came out and it was at 96 point something, the one person that was taking that, and because it's a small school, you know, a one person switch will have a bigger percentage effect. That one person was in the unemployed and seeking category. So I always count the unemployed and seeking as not a positive destination. And as I said, I'm delighted to say that that person is now in the career of their choice, and it's a service career as well, which I'm pleased to say.
That's great, Norman. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. And it's I know that when small numbers, any percentage can look a lot bigger than it actually is. So appreciate the explanation. Thank you. Councillor McGilvray, your hands up.
Just a few points. As a satisfied consumer, I must admit, I've got grandchildren on a range through primary and secondary, and one has just started in nursery and is thoroughly enjoying the whole thing. There's just a bit of a peak I see in primary 4 with 33 pupils. Will that cause any problems? And going on to suitability, which the chair quite correctly brought up, I think part of that can be addressed by the, as we'll see in a later paper, the 100,000 maximum, which is going into the tennis court come multi-games area scheduled for the back of the school. And also, I think I've actually started campaigning and lobbying again for the full sports centre, as there's community renewal money coming into play. And to my mind, it should not, the CSER constituency should not pour all its money into WIC, into which a lot of money has been poured endlessly over the last few years. And I've dug out the original tender report, CAL 15131. The planning officers have, with glee, informed me that the planning consent due to COVID is not over and runs until April 2022. And I've actually had HLH, Highland Highland, dig out the original application to Sport Scotland. So I'm using this evidence along with the business plan, which Highland Highland prepared in the past, to actually mount a campaign to try and get it a very minor project in community renewable funding terms back onto schedule. So I'm lobbying as hard as I can for that. The other thing that came up to my mind on the way through is the last inspections were around 2009, 2010. So I think we can look forward to something coming. The inspectors, HMI is coming in due course. And I think that'll be a very good point to, I'll use that as part of my evidence, part of my campaign, part of my lobbying for the sports centre again. And there's a lot of evidence there that the council should not have just dumped this project in 2018, but could in fact have carried it through. So that's where I'm at the moment, Norman. And perhaps I'll catch up with you on other points, minor points in due course. Oh, the 100,000 golf club sports facility, the tennis court. I'm delighted to see that the council will absorb that and maintain it into the actual overall facilities of the school. I had a problem working out just how that was going to work. But it's an easy answer. Is the council take it on board once it's constructed, absorb it and maintain it. I think that's a very positive thing also, and I look forward to getting a game of five-a-sides in due course. Walking five-a-sides. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Do you want to add anything to that, Norman, or are you...
Yes, thank you. I'd love to respond. Just to your first point, Jim, about the 33 pupils. Will it cause problems? No. Unequivocally not. That ties into something I touched on earlier about our ASL provision. We are in the fortunate position of having a good robust catchment of pupils, but we also get placement requests as well. And I believe that's a testament to what we're able to, or at least to what we fight to provide all the time. So no, I don't see a problem there at all. Just occurred to me, Jim, and I should have mentioned, although this is not to do with the secondary, it is to do with the campus as a whole, the phenomenal amount of work that went into stonework in Dornoch Primary last year, and I know there's subsequent work to happen on the gable, and I know we've had officers round to look at that just now, so it's really good news. And I'm pleased to hear about the sports centre. In terms of inspections, we live in expectation all the time. We just live in expectation. That's our permanent mindset. And I couldn't even predict when that might take place, but certainly it's been a while. And I would imagine once things settle down with COVID that yes, we'll be there. And that's it. Thank you, Jim. And Mr. Gill, thank you.
Thank you, Norman, and thank to both of you for coming along. There's no more hands up, so you're off the hook. But I really appreciate you attending and giving us that report. It's very positive, and well done. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, you are welcome to stay, but I suspect you'll have other things to be doing. But thanks again. Okay, members, we're moving on now to item 5 on the agenda, which is the community asset transfer requests, and we have, I believe, Pablo with us today to give us to talk to this report, and I'll pass over to you, Pablo. Thank you.
Yeah, morning, Chair and members. So first for Sutherland, this is the first of our community asset transfers that will come to one of the local committees as a result of the changes in the scheme and delegation recently. So you're first out of all our area committees to deal with one. This is, as I'm sure you'll be familiar with the organisation, Kyle of Sutherland Development Trust, seeking to take ownership of the picnic area, car park area and toilets in Bonar Bridge. They're looking to take that ownership for £1. The market value is £20,000. I would class this as a preparatory community asset transfer. The group are still trying to put the funding package together. They've been provisionally allocated 170,000 out of the Rural Tourism Infrastructure Fund, and they've gained 72,000 from the Coastal Communities Fund. There are a number of issues that they're working to resolve around the site and the project. So there is currently an issue they're working around flooding or potential flooding of the site. There's a small saving to the council from this application. It currently costs us £7,000 a year to run the public toilets, and obviously we'd be passing that responsibility over to the group. The car park isn't of a size or a location that would be in scope for the council charging on it, so there's not a lost potential income there. In terms of the land in question, you'll be probably more familiar with the site than I am, but there's an area the council leases from Ross Estate, and there's also a Scottish Water presence on the site. So if we were to transfer the council's portion of the land, the group would have to work through those issues with the other landowners. What else have I got that's relevant to you? In terms of the group, they're a group that's well known to us. They've a really good track record. I'm sure you'll know them locally. We've evaluated their application in terms of what they want to do. So there's a number of elements to it. There's parking, there's motorhome facilities, there's camping, there's e-bike charging, and there's improved toilets and showers. So it's a big project, but they're a well-known group with a track record, although there are the issues around the site that they're working at resolving. So it's trying to get that building block of an approved community asset transfer in place so that they can continue to progress the project. So it's one we're recommending for approval, but still a bit of work to do. So happy to answer any questions you might have on it.
Thank you for that, Pablo. Yeah, I mean, I'm particularly pleased with this application. I think that this transfer, as you say, the Sutherland Development Trust have a really good positive track record, and they always deliver, which is really, really encouraging. And I think there's a real opportunity here to provide a quality area for visitors and locals alike, to be honest. So I think this is very positive. I understand from the papers that there are a number of things to overcome, but I'm sure that knowing the track record of the individuals concerned and with the support of yourself and the council, that they'll be able to do that. I've got one question. On page 20, 3.1, it talks about the running cost of the toilet at £7,000 per annum at the moment, and we expect a net saving of £500,000. Sorry, £500,000. I'm just because of the comfort scheme introduced. So I'm just wondering, that's £6,500 it's going to still cost us in terms of comfort schemes. Will you just explain that anomaly to me? Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm just not quite following what's being referred to here. If you can help me out with that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, myself and a colleague, Ewan, who's actually in the call, have been knocking that back and forward between us this morning. It can quite often be difficult to get to grips with the amount of money that's going into a site, because it's coming in from different services that are running different elements of it. And also some of them are speculative in terms of what would we make on a site. The best we can get to is that there will be a net saving to the council from the site. So we currently spend £7,000 per annum on the toilet provision. There'll be an amount on occasion in some years on car park maintenance. We would also, if the group applied to us, and I'm assuming they would apply to us if they took on the project, they would be eligible for a comfort scheme payment, which I believe is £300 a month. So that would give you roughly £3,500 a year. So I think the message is that there would be a net saving to the council. It's hard to be exact on what that would be in any given year, though.
Okay, thank you. But we wouldn't be maintaining the car park, would we, once we transfer the asset?
No, if you agreed a sale to them, all responsibilities for the site would transfer to the organisation.
Okay, thank you, Pablo. Councillor McGilvery, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just to echo your comments, Chair, I think it's an excellent way forward. Although it's not in this ward, I get a fairly regular flow of complaints about the current situation there. So this actually, I think, is a major step forward. And I'm quite sure the Development Trust are going into this with their eyes open and have a fully costed business plan and aware of what's going on. So totally in favour. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't see any other hands up, so I think we are being asked to agree the following community asset transfer request. Now, the recommendations are in front of members. Now, I'm very conscious of the fact that we don't have any members of Ward 1 with us, and the Bonar Bridge lies in Ward 1, but I have had a communication from Councillor Morrison to say he fully supports this transfer. So that would, presuming there's no objections today from the members who are present, that would give us 4 who have confirmed that they're supportive. So unless I'm seeing any objections, I think we can accept that we are agreeing to the community asset transfer request. No? Okay, that's great. Well, thank you, Pablo. Great. Much appreciated, and thanks for your attendance. And if we're the first, then it's great. It's nice for Sutherland to be first at something.
Okay, thanks.
Right, thank you. Okay, members, moving on. We are going to item 6, which is the. I'm working between papers here. Give me 2 seconds. Agenda item 6 is a housing performance report. Now, I believe we have Jim Holden with us today, who's going to talk to the report. I've also got Marina, who just popped up on my screen there. Well, hello there, and welcome. Before we hear the report, I'd just like to say that Mr. Holden is, I believe, retiring next month, and I'd like to wish him well and for a long and healthy retirement, and I hope he manages to achieve all the things he wants to achieve during his retirement, and thank him for his long years of service to the council. It's greatly appreciated. I have worked with Jim in my role as manager of the CAB in Golspie, and we've hammered through some difficult issues together, and I really appreciate his support over that period of time. So thank you, Jim, and I say all the best for your retirement. Thank you. So I'll hand you over to do that for the report. Thank you.
That's very generous, Chair. Thank you very much for that. It's very generous of you to be full of praise before I've delivered the report. It might be slightly different afterwards, who can say? But all I would say is that I've only managed to do what I have done, courtesy of the excellent team that you got in Sutherland, headed up by Marina. And I think it's not premature just to let you know that we've made some changes to Marina's working arrangements today, which should be positive for the area going forward. So that's good news as well. I'm sure Marina will let you know in due course. So you've got in front of you, members, a report for the last quarter of last year, so up until the end of March. Marina and the team have worked very hard through the COVID lockdown. It's been a very challenging time for the team, and they've responded well to that. I think it's probably been more challenging for the tenants, and some of the things that we're reporting here are probably illustrative of that, particularly in relation to arrears and homelessness. So it's not a report that reads well in all areas. I think if you look, for example, under the repairs side of things, you'll see that we've still got some quite significant challenges in completing emergency repairs within time, particularly in the far northwest, and that's certainly a cause for concern. We're very aware of that challenge, and I know that Colin is keen to bring that back on track again, but it is certainly the reported figures aren't as we would want them in North and West Central Sutherland. Pretty good in Sutherland, East Sutherland, Edison. That's positive, and I'm sure we'll try and sustain that kind of level. Over the page, non-emergency repairs. They're not bad actually, which is slightly the opposite of what you would probably want to see. You'd want to see the emergency repairs dealt with quickly, and the non-emergency not quite such a higher priority. But the backlog is being dealt with, and I'm pretty confident again that will be back on track within a short while. Obviously, we've got a further relaxation today of the COVID regulations. The housing management team met last week to review what changes we could make to ensure a full return to normal repairs service. Obviously, there will still be some restrictions, still some concerns on health and safety and so on. But we've got a good risk assessment and pretty positive to pretty much normal working, subject of course to other lockdowns that might happen nationally or locally. In terms of tenancy management, relet times remain a challenge, and all I can say is that you'll know from previous conversations that it only takes one or two properties to require extensive repairs, or one or two properties that are hard to let in remote areas. It skews the figures, and I'm afraid that Marina will probably be reporting that to you for the foreseeable future, just because of the nature of the housing stock in Northwest Sutherland. So whether there's an alternative way of reporting it by excluding some of these long-term voids, I think it's something that will be a subject of continuing conversation long after I've left the council. But it is the fact that the way the statistics are put together, it doesn't take much to skew them into figures that look a bit alarming on the face of it. But the reality is that it's usually only one or two properties that are the problem. Looking at rent arrears, the team again have worked hard. I think it's probably a tribute to them that the figure at the end of the financial year was not substantially more than it was at the start of the financial year, but it's still a figure higher than I'm sure Marina and her team would want to have reported to you. The fact is that the changes that we've had from COVID, people's seasonal employments has been badly affected. Other people have not been able to work in the hospitality industry and so on. So I think nationally, in sense of Highland wide, we're concerned that the full impact of the economic impacts of COVID haven't really been felt yet, and that may well be something that's going to affect us this year. But we'll see how that pans out. But you can be reassured, members, that Marina and her team are continuing to follow the arrears escalation policy, but with full cognizance of the difficult circumstances that people find themselves in now. So it's a hard balance to achieve, to try and maximise their rental income, but also make sure that we're not penalising people inappropriately and making their life more difficult than it needs to be. So a fine balance to be achieved, and I'm confident Marina and the team will continue to do that. One of the more concerning figures, although not in the sense of vast numbers, but the trend direction for homeless presentations is not good. And I think this is actually something that we're beginning to see in other areas too. Some of it's COVID related, and I think we probably still some fallout to come on that, particularly when the eviction restrictions put in by Scottish Government ease, which is what's being suggested, although it may continue, we're not entirely certain, but people are certainly struggling. And I think the pressures of being at home over the long period of the COVID lockdown have also meant that some of sort of family relationships have been a bit more challenging, and therefore some youngsters are being asked to leave, and also other longer term relationships are breaking down, resulting in increased homelessness. So Marina and the team have been working hard, but it is a challenging area, and the availability of accommodation is becoming one of the major factors. So I think some of the solutions may well be coming through in terms of new build, but that has a 18 months to 2 year lead time. So there's no easy and immediate answers to this, and we'll have to be creative as we have been. But some people who appear as homeless in Sutherland may find themselves offered accommodation out with the area, which is probably not what they want, but it meets our statutory obligation, but it's not really a good long-term solution. That's Paul. I know you're getting updates on the capital programme from Jonathan in a separate forum, so I'll not comment on that. But that's the report, members. Very happy to take questions, and I know Marina will chip in and assist me with local detail, which I possibly lack. So, members, there's your report.
Thank you for that, Jim. Thank you for the report. It's in general, it's a very positive report. I know you guys work really hard. Having worked with Marina for over the last 4 years, I know how much work and effort she and her team do to work with tenants, often in difficult circumstances. So the effort of everybody is greatly appreciated. I know that with the rent arrears, looking at the report and seeing the rent arrears have shot up over the last year or so, and it is a genuine concern. We're looking at a good, what's that, 70% increase in rent arrears. Now, I would like to know how much that's relating to deferred rent payments from for housing benefit through universal credit, or how much is actually rent arrears from individuals. Because I think sometimes the increase in universal credit claimants can skew the figures and make it look worse than it is, because we know it's just a deferred payment there. So if you give me a breakdown on that, that would be really useful. And the other question I have, Jim, is just in my own head, there's a breakdown of at the bottom of the table, and it talks about rent collected as a percentage of the rent due in Sutherland, and in Q1 it talks about 100.39%. So we've collected more rent than is due. So again, that's probably a statistical blip. But if you just explain how we could come to that, that would really be useful. Thanks very much.
Certainly, Chair. Thank you. I mean, I think on that, terms, better arrangements with DWP now, we do get we get payments through quite quickly, but it doesn't take away from the fact there's often a 5-week standing time before people get their universal credit. So that can cause some of the issues that you're highlighting. I always urge caution. I mean, in all my career in housing, I've had to report on arrears cases and rent arrears, and it's so subject to the point at which you take the snapshot, and you can take it a week later, and it will show a much better picture because of the fact that it's the date at which payments come in from standing orders and so on. So it's always a slightly movable feast, and we're always conscious that members possibly read these figures as being absolutely definitive. But as I say, had you taken them possibly a week earlier or a week later, the figures would have looked quite different. So it is very challenging to give you an accurate picture. But certainly the 2 points, questions you've raised, Marina, I think unless you've got immediate comments, maybe you'll go back direct to Councillor Gale on that afterwards.
Yeah. Just to give an idea, I carried out the rent arrears reviews with the staff last week, and Councillor Gale and Councillor McGilvery, your ward was actually sitting at £33,338 last week, with only 4 tenants in arrears over £1,000. Wow. So that gives an idea of how the snapshot changes throughout the year, like Mr. Holden's just explained.
Thanks for that. I appreciate the clarification on that. That's useful. Thank you. Okay. Thanks for that, Jim. I've got Jim McGilvery. Councillor McGilvery, you want to ask a question?
Just a quick point, just to say a good job's been done in trying in difficult circumstances. So I fully appreciate what's the tone of the report. I could ask this maybe, but just since you're there, I'm looking at waiting list in the IV25 area. Can you put a rough figure on just where we stand at the moment, please?
I don't have those figures to hand, but we can get those to you after the meeting.
That's fine. That's perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Right. I have a hand up here. Colin Sharp, you have a hand up.
Hi, yeah, sorry, thank you very much, Chair. It's Colin Sharp, I'm the Repairs Manager at Highland Council. I've joined the meeting just in case you have any questions regarding the repairs or anything like that I can assist with. So just letting you know that I'm here, basically. That's why I was raising my hand. Thank you.
Well, thanks for that, Colin. Much appreciated. Thank you, and welcome to the meeting. Okay. I don't see any other hands up. So I think again, I'd just like to thank you for the report. And thank you again for all the hard work that Marina and the team do, and thank you, Jim, for your years of service. It's very good of you to come along today, and it's much appreciated. I don't think there's any other questions for you, so you're free to go. So thanks again.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, members. Bye bye.
Thank you all very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Hello, members. My screen's frozen here. Okay, now members, we're moving on to item 7 on the agenda, which is the Dornoch Common Good Fund consultation on proposal to dispose by lease and changes of use of the common good land at Dornoch Links to Royal Dornoch Golf Club. So we've got I'm seeing Sarah there, and who else is there to actually present that? I'm just not seeing it fully on the screen. Ken Forbes, you leapt into the screen there. So, can I ask which one of you is going to talk through this report?
That'll be me. I'll kick off, and then Kenny's got some input as to part of the report. The report before you, members, details the outcome of the consultation process that we ran in respect of the various proposals concerning the land in and around that used by Royal Dornoch Golf Course. Obviously, it involves the proposal to dispose by a new long lease of 99 years. And it also involves various changes of use, both for the proposed construction of the new clubhouse. That would be a change of use of ground currently used for the playing of golf for the construction of a building, and also for the various changes of use of other common good land currently occupied by the tennis courts and by the bowling club. And this is all to affect improved access into the area of the parking facility for the golf club, and also to improve car parking itself. So the consultation was an in-depth consultation following some lengthy and complicated negotiations involving the representative of the council's estates team and the representatives from the golf club and the input of the community council. So the report details the various points that have come out of the consultation report. It is something that will then proceed from yourselves, members, by way of recommendation, as I understand now, a starred item to the next full council meeting. And that's as a result of the value that the value of Dornoch Golf Club, of the fund, Dornoch Common Good Fund. So it will go by way of starred item. That's now been confirmed, and that's the appropriate way that it would go in respect of this consultation. Attached by way of appendices to the report is the original consultation document, because there's a lot of information contained in that that is quite important, and also it's quite detailed, so it ties in quite nicely to the report as giving the information we can refer to that rather than simply repeating it in the report. And also there's an analysis, and it's the analysis that's attached to the report that Kenny is going to have some input to as well. We have an amendment in respect of the analysis that we will have to put before you in due course. It has been picked up that the second question in the box of issues and enquiries that has a response to it has been responded to using information relating to a previous stage of the negotiation process. And given how complicated the negotiation process is, it's perhaps understandable that there might have been some sort of slip there, that we did get that information incorrect. We're currently working through a more appropriate response, and we now have information to be able to respond in a way that will clear that up, and there will be an amended response that will go to attached to the report for the purposes of council. So the analysis document shows that we received a total of 31 responses to the consultation. They were from local people and international people, as you would expect with the type of membership that Royal Dornoch has. Overwhelmingly supportive. There were only in total 4 responses that raised questions to be answered. Beyond that, all of the others were very supportive, and there's examples contained in the analysis of the type of supportive comments that were coming through, and I think it's always good to see how much people think that this will benefit not just the golf club but the whole of Dornoch itself, with everything that it should bring into the golf club. And hopefully, as the life improves and COVID maybe becomes more manageable, we will start to see some of the benefits to Dornoch community coming with such a proposal as this. The questions and issues that were raised are all summarised in the table at paragraph 2b of the analysis, and it's only the one, which is the second section down, that has raised a particular issue. So that's the one that will need to be clarified. And I now have information that will allow me to do that, but all of the other information has not raised any particular red flags. So perhaps if I just clarify that the information that we will need to amend at the moment, as you can see, members, if you look at that report, we're saying there that after the base rent rate of 25,000, that there would then be the £2 per visitor round tariff, and that's what's not correct. That's not to be included. That's changed now. So what the position is that we have the base 25,000 rent. There's an additional 25,000 rent when turf is broken for the construction of the new clubhouse. The value of the lease is a little tricky. It's not as easy as simply saying it's either the 50,000 rent or the 25,000 rent. There's obviously far more that Kenny and Chris and their team do to value an asset such as a lease asset. So that's a little bit trickier. So we will have a response for that. I think it would be fair to say that dividing the rent into 2 parts has incentivised the signing of the golf club new lease, or the proposed signing of the golf club new lease. And definitely at the moment, with how income is probably for all clubs and sporting facilities with the pandemic that we've had, any sort of incentive like that is going to be something that businesses will be looking for. This situation regarding if the golf club decide not to break turf and build the clubhouse, would the lease remain at 25,000 for the next 99 years? I can't see that anything is in writing that that's been discussed, although I'm sure it possibly could have been discussed. But logic would say that if they don't build the new golf clubhouse, then yes, the lease would remain at 25,000. we've got to hope that they will be able to continue with their plans, their ambitious plans, their much needed plans. Obviously, at the moment, life is perhaps uncertain. So whether their timescale for commencing the clubhouse is as they would originally have hoped at the time this consultation commenced, whether there would be slippage on that due to income and available funds to actually break turf for that construction will remain to be seen. But it is the breaking of the turf, I think, that will trigger the payment of that additional rent. And I think at the moment there's little more I can say. I don't know if Kenny would like to add anything to that. I will be drafting an amendment to that, which will come round to you members for being able to see.
Thank you, Sarah, for that. Much appreciated. Kenny, have you got anything to add?
No, I think Sarah's covered it all. Everything I was probably going to say as well. I don't think anyone had really discussed with the golf course that what happens if they don't build a new clubhouse. I guess there's maybe an assumption, you know, that this whole negotiations on the basis of that. So I guess regardless what happens, they'd be going up to £25,000 in rent anyway, which is still a lot better than passing. So it's not the end of the world if they don't build it. It's still a better position, I would think.
Thank you for that. I mean, it's certainly, as far as I'm aware, the aspirations of the golf club are definitely to build this new clubhouse, and it's certainly a better deal for the common good as it stands, even with the £25,000 on its own. So I'm really in favour of this. I think it's been a really long, drawn-out negotiation and consultation process, and I know that a number of you have done an awful lot of hard work on this, and it hasn't been easy, and we've been getting regular reports on progress, and so it's been a very difficult process. So I'm very appreciative of everything you've done, so thank you very much for that. It's greatly appreciated. I've got one question for you. I'm looking at page 33 and Appendix 2, and it talks about during the first 7 years of the lease, no rent will be payable, and in the year when visitor numbers are less than that required for RDGC to break even. Now, I'm assuming that means that no additional rent will be paid, as opposed to no rent. So if you can just clarify that for me, that would be very useful. Thank you.
I've lost my microphone there. I think the thing is that it's no rent. There was a very long and that's quite a short paragraph, but there's quite a complicated sliding scale whereby the calculation is stepped in stages, and I think it's envisaged that it would be extremely unlikely that the situation would be that there would be no rent payable, that visitor numbers would be such that there would be no rent payable. But clearly, when we look at the type of year that we've had in the past year, there have been, certainly in the first lockdown, there were occasions when there was no golf played. The golf courses quite simply were closed. Now, we would have to look at that, and that was part of the discussion. My understanding is in the negotiations that took place that they anticipated that when the club is up and running, it would be extremely likely that visitor numbers would ever fall below the cut-off point for no rent. It could be that it would be a reduced rent as the economy recovers and travel recovers. But my understanding is that it's as it's written there, that there would be no rent payable, and it would be against the 25,000. So we're not even talking a minimal base rent at that stage, because it would envisage that really there was a situation that the club was running at a loss on that situation, so they wouldn't be expected to pay the rent.
Thank you for that, Sarah. That does raise a concern with me, I have to say. I think into other tenants of the common good who were expected to pay their full rent, regardless of the fact that their business was closed down over the pandemic period as well, and they were taking no income in. So there seems to be a bit of an anomaly there, to my way of thinking. And we're treating different tenants in a different way. So perhaps, if you can clarify that for me. That's because it does concern me that if we say that one particular tenant doesn't pay rent, if they're not making any money, but another tenant does have to pay rent despite the fact they're not making any money, then we're opening ourselves up to challenges, and that concerns me going forward.
Kenny, do you think you can shed some light on that one, please?
Yeah, not really either. I've not been that involved in negotiations, and I guess my understanding is it would be no rent payable. I mean, just reading probably the same email as Sarah. I think the figures I seem to remember as well was that they reckoned if it fell below 7,000 visitors, that would be a problem for them. And currently they get between 10 and 15,000 a year. So, hopefully with COVID, easing off, it wouldn't come to that. The difference perhaps between existing tenants is, this is a negotiation, and we are kind of struggling to get the deal. We have to work with the golf course. It's slightly different when there's an existing lease. We have to kind of stick to the terms that have been agreed. I guess going forwards, if any new tenant comes to us or any new lease proposal comes to us, I guess we can consider it on its merit, and there might be some tenants who put in these sort of clauses about financial circumstances, meaning they don't pay rent, and I guess we can consider it. As it happens, pre-COVID, nobody had that sort of clause in their lease, but it might be something that comes out of it more and more. But yeah, I think we need to check the detail, and with Chris Holmes, who's been negotiating it, what has been agreed, and as the sliding scale probably needs firmed up on. But I don't have a definitive answer really.
Okay, thanks, Kenny and Sarah, for that. I'd just like to record my concerns about that particular aspect of the lease. I'm certainly fully in favour of the lease going forward. I think it's good for Dornoch, it's good for local people, and it's good for Scotland generally that we have such a prestigious facility in the Highlands, and I'm fully supportive. But I am concerned about that particular aspect of it, and the possible legal challenges that may ensue. Councillor McGilvery, you got your hand up.
Yeah, firstly, the golf club have been in touch with me recently, and they're very keen to see this progressed as quickly as possible. So I don't see there's any danger of it not going ahead. Secondly, an apology. When Sarah briefed us at our Ward Business meeting, I didn't pick up on that glitch in Appendix 2. I think it was part of an email trail I had with Chris away back in October of last year. And I think I stood back from things at that point because you cannot be a player and a referee in the same game. So it was concluded finally, and I've double checked with Paddy Murray, Chair of Dornoch Community Council, and what is stated in Appendix 2, going from proposed new lease term of 99 years, through the paragraph that gives the Chair some concerns during the first 7 years of lease, no rent, and down to both elements, 5-yearly rent reviews. The Chair of the Community Council and the Community Council are content with the phrasing of that. And knowing Paddy Murray as being a terrier for detail, then I'm quite sure that he has actually chewed through the whole thing. But it does no harm to have your concerns carried forward, Chair. The only other item that will give me a little bit of concern is where the double deal with the bowling club land and the tennis court, and how that is actually confirmed. Though at the moment we're only dealing with, as Sarah's explained to me, the principle of the lease, and that there will be some refinement to go. But I'm very keen that there's a reasonable tie-in between the change of use of the bowling club and release of the tennis court actually translates into £100,000 to a facility at the school, and I'm delighted to see that the council is now taking full responsibility for that facility once it is constructed. So that's where I am at the moment. Thank you.
Sorry, I cut myself off there. Apologies for that. Too many buttons to press. Yes, thank you for that, Jim. Okay, I mean, we are being asked to consider the proposals, and obviously we understand that it has to go to full council and it will go to a start item. I personally don't have any issues with it. I would like some clarification on that point I raised, but apart from that, I don't have any issues with it, and I'm fully supportive of the proposals. And I don't see anybody else raising any concerns. I'm not seeing any hands up. So are we happy to accept the recommendations, members?
Before we go, Chair, can I just get a comment on the sports facility? Just what kind of relationship, formal relationship will that have? Or is that one for perhaps Chris Holmes to answer rather than anybody present here?
Yeah, I don't know about it unless Sarah knows anything.
Perhaps it's a handshake and a goodwill.
I mean, my understanding is I think that Chris has been involved in discussions with the relevant person in the education estates team, so he wouldn't be the person that would have that information. It's not something that's directly come in because it's not a common good asset, so it's not something I've directly been involved with. But perhaps that's something that could be confirmed when Chris is back at work.
The tennis courts are a common good asset, and the bowling club pay their rent to the common good.
The current tennis court is a common good asset, and the current bowling club is a common good asset. But the new sports facility will not be a common good asset.
Understood.
That will be a council asset.
Understood.
I think the golf club are paying for the move to the bowling club green, yes, and all of that for being able to improve the access. And a lot of that will now be, I'm sure, tied in with, obviously we'll have to have the court application in any event to confirm the change of use and everything, but also around playing season as far as the bowling club are concerned, because I'm sure timing is important for them. And that's probably something that will have to be independently negotiated between the bowling club and whoever the golf club are going to use as contractors to effect that move, because I'm sure that's going to be a timing issue. The tennis court is probably a little bit easier to handle because at the moment it's a hardcore surface and it's going to form part and parcel of the car park. But again, I think that's all a timing issue once we're in a position to actually make that move. And obviously we'll have to have the council approval and then the court application after that.
I suppose the very fact that it's mentioned explicitly in these papers has some weight, has some bearing.
Absolutely, and it's part and parcel of the whole thing. I mean, we considered at one point whether or not we split things off and looked at the move of the bowling club and the tennis court and everything in isolation and did that first. But that would effectively have involved two separate consultations and two separate court applications of essentially something that all ties together. So we thought it was perhaps a much more tidy way to have it all part and parcel of the same consultation and court process, because it is really to achieve one overall umbrella arrangement of improving everything in that area. So that's why it was all brought in under one. So and we wouldn't be repeating and wasting court time by almost taking two applications on broadly a similar thing. And it does all tie in together. So that's how that's happened. But I'm sure there will then be timing. And I'm sure particularly as far as the bowling club are concerned, they'll have a lot of input into when the appropriate time for any move is as far as they're concerned.
Okay, I'm content with that. Thank you.
I think it could also be recorded in the lease, you know, to the golf course that they have this obligation. It wouldn't just be, you know, left for a handshake, as you say, or I think it could still form part of the overall lease.
Okay, thanks. I'm content.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Jim. And yes, it's good to raise these things and to clarify things before we actually go forward. The final decision for this does not lie with us; it lies with the full council. But I mean, our concerns or our thoughts should need to be taken into consideration when that decision is being made at full council, which will be presumably in June, I'd imagine. So I have Well, Jim, you put your hand up again.
Just to say, it has been a long and grueling negotiation. So I would delighted to see this pulled to a conclusion, and we all live happily ever after.
Yes, well, I would share that with you, Jim. We've been talking about this for a number of years, and it's good to see it finally going forward. So thanks for that. Now, I'm very conscious of the fact that we have only 3 members at this meeting, and I need to have confirmation that all 3 of us are happy with the recommendations and happy to proceed. So, Councillor Mackay, can you confirm your agreement to accept the recommendations, please? Councillor Mackay, can you hear us? Okay, well,
Chair, can we get agreement by email if need be, because I wouldn't like to have anything holding us up as we move forward to June the 24th in the full council.
Well, I'll ask Anne, but as far as I'm aware, because this is an area committee, we can't make decisions by email because it has to be done in the public domain. So I don't think we can actually do that. But I'll bow to Anne's superior knowledge. Anne, can you advise, please?
Chair, yes, I think the agreement should come at the committee.
Yeah, that was what I thought.
But if it doesn't come, then we're throwing things off for another committee, and that's throwing the whole timescale off.
Yeah, what we're trying to do. But Jim, there's only 2 of us here, so we can't. We're not quoried unless we have Deirdre here. So somebody is trying to contact Deirdre at the moment just to make case there's a problem with her comms. And so we just defer this if you guys can stay online at the moment, and we'll just get. In fact, what we'll do is pause the meeting for 15 minutes to see if we can contact Councillor Mackay.
Yes, thank you, Chair, because I would not like to see this delayed at all.
I agree with you, but we need to follow. Otherwise, it can be thrown out anyway, Jim. So we need to make sure that we get it right, and that's really important. So yes, we're going to have a 15-minute recess so we can see if we can contact Councillor Mackay. So I've asked everybody to stay online, and we'll pause the recording and come back in 15 minutes. And if everyone wants to go get a cup of tea, that's fine. Thank you, and welcome back, everybody. And apologies for the extended delay there. I'd just like to point out at this moment that Councillor Mackay was called away, unfortunately, during that report. So what we're going to do now is just go over the recommendations and to check her understanding of the situation and to make her aware of any changes to the report as per Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. So members were asked to note the outcome of the consultation process undertaken as contained in the analysis at Appendix 1, approve the responses to the issues raised in connection with the proposal as outlined in the table at paragraph 2 of Appendix 1, note the estimated value of RDGC against the full value of Dornoch Common Good, which will mean that it must be referred to a meeting of full council for a decision. Agree that a recommendation should be made to full council to approve the proposal to dispose by lease of the area of Dornoch linked to Royal Dornoch Golf Club. Agree that a recommendation should be made to full council to approve the proposals to change the use of the part of land to allow construction of a new clubhouse and part of the bowling club land of a tennis court for improved access and parking. Note that if agreed, it will be necessary to seek Sheriff Court consent because the land is classed as inalienable. And finally, note that other permissions may be required relating to planning. However, this is a separate process to that required under community empowerment legislation. And for Councillor Mackay's benefit, there has been a change on an inaccuracy in Appendix 1, which refers to the visitor levy, and that is no longer the case. And there will be 2 levels of rent. There's an initial rent of £25,000 per annum and an additional rent once the members, the players get above 7,000. I believe that correct, Sarah? Do you want to clarify that for Councillor Mackay, please?
Certainly, the rent is in 2 parts. The rent is payable initially at 25,000 and an additional 25,000 when the golf club break ground for the building of the new clubhouse. The position as far as the sliding scale is that no rent would be payable on a sliding scale, and that's to allow or to ensure that the golf club really can operate at a financially break-even point. That's part of the lease terms. But specifically in response to that those questions that were raised, we will confirm an answer now, an amended answer about the valuation of the leasehold asset, that it's not quite the same as it's just simple rental value, that you have an estimated capital value to the Dornoch Common Good Fund once the new lease is in place. So that's what gives it the value that's in the report of £625,000. That the split of the rent into two parts was required as an incentive for the golf club, and that was very much because we were arguing for the 50,000 from the outset, but that wouldn't have been possible, and the golf club weren't agreeable to that. And that although there's nothing specifically to confirm the third question that's raised in that section, it would seem likely that as the additional 25,000 is attached to the breaking of the ground for the building of the new clubhouse, if they don't break ground and build the clubhouse, the rent would remain at 25,000 rather than the 50,000. That's with the caveat that I suspect it's unlikely that they would ever not build the new clubhouse. I think that is very much what is driving the need to come to terms on this lease. So we will be putting in amended answers in an amended document to that form. So I would suggest that maybe what you're doing on that, members, is approving those recommendations subject to the amendment of that section. And I will put in and circulate an amended analysis. So it's the correct analysis that gets the starred item going to committee, going to council.
Thank you for that clarification, Sarah. Much appreciated. So, Councillor Mackay, are you happy then? Councillor McGilvery and I have both agreed to the recommendations, subject to the amendment as detailed by Sarah there. Are you likewise are you similarly inclined?
Yes, I am, Chair.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. Okay, that is confirmed, and we'll go ahead to the next council meeting and then onwards to Sheriff Court, assuming that it goes past that level. Okay, thank you very much, Sarah and Kenny, much appreciated, and apologies for keeping you hanging on a little bit longer, but I think it was really important that we got that resolved, and not hold up any longer. So thanks very much indeed, and thank you. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Okay, there's a couple one more item left on the agenda, members, and that is the confirmation of the minutes. I'm assuming you've all seen the minutes, so if we're all agreed that the minutes are an accurate reflection of the meetings that took place on Monday the 1st of March and on the 1st of April. Are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Richard. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then one thing, before we close the meeting, members, what I'd like to do is to note that the been made aware of the situation with ongoing issues of poverty across Sutherland, and what I'd like to do is have a standing item on this agenda for future meetings to discuss the items of fuel poverty, food poverty, and poverty in general, and specifically reporting specifically about levels of debt that are being incurred as a result of the very difficult year that we've all gone through. And building on that, I'd also like to invite members of CAB or whoever can report to us on that going forward. So are all members present agreed with that suggestion?
Excellent idea. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, I'm agreed, Chair, and I thank you very much for raising this today. As you know, well, you're a member of the Sutherland Community Partnership, and I think it'd be very helpful indeed to align the work of the partnership with that of the Sutherland County Committee, in order that we can deal with issues of poverty, health and well-being in a more effective way. So thank you very much for raising this.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the meeting, members. Thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you very much for your patience as things didn't go quite to plan. And thank you very much, Julie. I do appreciate you recalled the wave, which was unavoidable. So thank you very much for rejoining. It's greatly appreciated. Okay, members, thank you very much. That brings the meeting to a close.
Thanks, Richard. Good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Thank you.